If Elizabeth Holmes goes to federal prison, will she serve time in what many people call a country club or club fed? I'm fascinated by the topic, not only because I served time in prison. Before I went in, I wondered if it was a club fed, but it's leading to a lot of attention and interest in how much she should actually suffer as a result of her alleged misconduct. Yesterday, I received an email from someone who doesn't know Miss Holmes, but who wrote to tell me that he is so excited and thrilled, ecstatic really, that she's going to get convicted at trial. And the downside to the email was he was very disappointed to know that her time in prison would be so easy because she's going to serve time in what he called a country club prison. So I thought there would be some value in addressing the realities of why do people call it a country club? Are there aspects to it that really are like a country club? Before I do, thank you so much for watching and listening. We know you're busy and we don't want to waste your time. We want to educate and inform you. So thank you. If you're listening to our Prison Professors podcast, we're grateful. If you're here on YouTube, please like and subscribe. Or if you don't like the video, dislike it and tell us why. We always want to do better. We always want to help inform and teach on this very warped, twisted criminal justice system. Before I get into life at Dublin Federal Prison Camp, which is where I suspect she would serve time if convicted, some quick background. As we know, this trial is going to take several months. The jury ranges in age from, I think, 19 years old to 65, 7 men, 5 women. Opening arguments have begun. And of course, the government is seeking to portray Miss Holmes as nothing more than a common criminal. Forget about the calling her the young Steve Jobs and the black turtleneck and on the cover of Fortune and Forbes and all of these magazines as an entrepreneur. The government isn't buyers. They are telling the jury she is nothing more than a thief and a criminal, a con person, and the consequences for her should be significant, in part because she chose not to accept responsibility. It is very hard to prevail at trial, right? When it's your name versus the United States of America, it is hard to expect a jury to view you objectively. When it's your name versus the United States of America, I know. Now, going to trial, I'll get into her defense in a moment, but I've always maintained there's 2 reasons people go to trial. And this comes through 13 years of experience. Everyone on our team has been through a government investigation. We've all been to prison and interacted with tens of thousands of people in prison, primarily my partner, Michael Santos, who endured 26 consecutive years in prison. You go to trial for 2 reasons. One, you're insane. You have to be insane if you actually did it to go to trial because the odds of prevailing are so incredibly low. The data is very convincing. More than, I think, 94% of people plead guilty. I can assure you some of those people who plead guilty feel as if they're innocent. Indeed, some of them are innocent, but the odds of prevailing at trial are so low that they take a deal of 1, 2, or 3 years instead of 7 or 8 years, which is what they'd get through this trial tax or penalty. Sometimes the government will threaten to indict the wife or their children if a defendant has the courage to actually go to trial. And of course, when you begin to threaten the family, one of the first things a defendant does is say, I got to keep my family out of prison. I'll take the deal, even if they're convinced they're innocent. So that's one reason someone who's maintains they're innocent may take a deal, but to actually go to trial, you either got to be innocent or insane. I don't know if she is innocent or insane. I do have questions over her defense, namely that they are seeking to blame Balwani, her former lover and employer, who is older. She's accusing him of PTSD and stress and mental anguish. And her lawyers have essentially said all of the wrongdoing, it was his bad. Yes, she was involved in the meetings to raise hundreds of millions of dollars. And yes, she was on the cover of magazines on TV. And yes, she was comfortable with the media portraying her as the next Steve Jobs, but she had nothing to do with it. We'll see. Additionally, they're saying as a small biotech company, there's risk. It's aggressive. Big boy and female investors in Silicon Valley should understand the risks associated with it. Failure of a business does not mean fraud was committed. And they also alleged that there is some puffery or misrepresentation that takes place in these sophisticated investors, including Walgreens and Safeway, should have been aware of. Time will tell, though the data suggests she's going to get convicted, serve time in federal prison. To that end, it may be Dublin. Is it a country club? Well, why do people call it a country club? I thought it would be a country club before I went to prison. Then after about 9 minutes, I said, this place ain't no country club. Well, why do people call it that? It started, I believe, in the 80s with Diane Sawyer, formerly of ABC. She did this piece I think there were helicopters and photos of this federal prison. It might have been in Nevada, a Nevada prison that's now closed. But there was a pool and there was a track and there was racquetball courts and tennis courts. And people are like, this is utterly absurd. My tax dollars are warehousing these people in a country club. I'm working full time. I can't exercise for 4 hours a day. I don't have access to a track. I don't have access to 3 meals a day. This place is a country club. This is ridiculous. This is absurd. These prisoners have it too good. For that reason, a lot of people call them country clubs or club fed, to the chagrin of people who want people like Miss Holmes to really struggle. It's almost like they want them to be back in a Russian gulag 23 hours a day doing hard labor, or in a concentration camp in North Korea. Not cool, but some people like to see the rich and powerful struggle. They like to see them suffer. And there is no doubt that is the case here with Miss Holmes for a number of reasons that I think some people have to look inwardly and address. The people who should be upset, if indeed she's convicted, are the victims, her family, the people that she hurt. Before I get more into Dublin and what she could expect there, I have trouble with her lawyer's argument that she didn't have intent to do fraud. In fact, her lawyer said that to the jury in the opening. And that, I mean, it's so obvious, right? You'd have to be like a nut job and sociopath to wake up and say, yes, today's the day I'm going to ruin people's lives and my own life and go to prison and destroy my reputation and, not see my kids for weeks, months, and years. And yeah. After I exercise this morning and shave and shower and, say goodbye to my wife and kids, I think I'm going to go and intentionally destroy everybody's life, including mine. Today feels like a good day. In fact, I should have started yesterday. That's absurd. The government doesn't care about intentions. They care about results. I can tell you, as I have said previously, I went for a nice run this morning. And again, I polished off 2 donuts. In fact, I still sort of feel them in these Paperni cheeks right here. I didn't intend to have the donuts, but they were in front of me and I crushed them. In fact, if there were donuts here right now, I'd pause this video and eat them. I have absolutely no control. The point is, the government doesn't care about intentions. What did you actually do? It's a terrible argument. I hear it every single day. It's outputting to the jury and the judge. What happened? If she's convicted, there's a chance she gets remanded and goes directly to prison. Odds are she will be able to self-surrender, potentially stay out pending her appeal, which could take quite some time. Once she ultimately gets to prison, it's a new world. She's going to be strip searched upon her surrender. She'll surrender with a few $100s and her ID and some medications. And she's going to be in a world around staff that is indifferent to her plight, that potentially have very little sympathy for her. In fact, because she's such a high target, it's essential that she really understand that environment. She understands that both staff and prisoners can be seeking to exploit her, because prison can be boring. In fact, I would argue the highest value in most prisons isn't violence, but rather boredom. And some longer-term prisoners look to make a name for themselves, look to fight, don't care if they get transferred to higher security prison or go to the hole, also known as the special housing unit, though of course there's nothing special about it. You're locked in a bunker 23 and a half hours a day. So she has to understand there's a target on her. So the way that she adjusts in front of prisoners and staff will really set the tone for her journey, because she can't do anything in prison, whether it's fitness or writing or reading or teaching or rebuilding her network and reputation, if she's getting into trouble or associating with the wrong people or responding inappropriately when challenged. And I can assure you, it's inevitable that it will happen. And I mention this because recently our team did an interview with Business Insider around this case, and the journalist was surprised to hear that she may be in with people who have been in prison for 10, 20, or 30 years. The presumption was, well, she's in a minimum security camp, most likely. That means she has 10 years or less to the door, right? Why would she be in with people who have been in prison for 20 years, in some cases in for gang-related crimes and very lengthy 20-year mandatory minimum drug sentences? That doesn't make sense. Isn't she going to be in with white-collar defendants or prisoners? No, I would argue 10% of the population, maybe less, will be white collar. The majority will be supposedly nonviolent drug offenders, and many of whom who have been in prison for a long time, their security classification or level has simply dropped, making them eligible for time in a minimum security camp. When people talk about it being a country club, what they don't consider is how much control is removed from her. For example, she won't be able to control her initial job. And in a country club, of course, you're not working in a country club. In a country club, you're used to people waiting on you and serving you. Well, on the flip side, in prison, for her, she's either going to be serving fellow prisoners in the chow hall, or worse, scrubbing toilets and showers, which some new prisoners at Dublin or Alderson do. Sure, she'll have an opportunity to pay someone to do her job. If caught, that's a disciplinary infraction. A number of prisoners do pay someone to do their job. I think it's a terrible idea. It shows laziness, shows you're not willing to contribute to the community of felons. Staff may find out, you may get into trouble, and it just shows an utter disdain for what's taking place. So she may scrub toilets and showers, though it's better than actually not doing her job. Something she'll have to consider is education. Some people convicted at trial who believe they're innocent spend their days lamenting and blaming others. They don't look inward. They don't introspect and think about the choices that led them there. Rather, they blame other people. That is when a federal prison term, if it's a year, it feels like 10. If it's 5, it feels like 15 or 20. So I would encourage Ms. Holmes, if in prison, to use her time wisely and to educate herself and to educate others. Despite the government claiming fraud and deceit and that she is nothing more than a common thief, she has had some success in life. As an entrepreneur, she raised money, and I don't believe all of that money was raised through deceit and treachery. Some of it was raised honestly, I have no doubt. The point is, she is in a position to teach in prison, and that would be the best way for her to offer advice. I'm a proponent of not offering unsolicited advice, right? You're moving into an environment where people have lived for weeks, months, and years. You can't be there for a week or a month or a year and start telling people how to live or telling people that things they're saying are wrong and why. People can find that off-putting. You've got to learn to shut up. But one way to contribute to the community and offer advice and improve your communication skills and create a win-win is to teach. So I would encourage her absolutely to teach. One thing that's making prison incredibly difficult right now is this quarantine due to COVID. So you surrender, you're locked in a bunker or the hole or confined to the housing unit for 23 hours a day where you can't leave. You may go weeks without access to email or phone. There will be temptations to use iPhones that are prevalent in federal prisons all across the country. Our team has received numerous calls over the years from wives and children calling to tell us their husband or their loved one got in trouble in prison for an iPhone. It is a major disciplinary infraction. It gets you sent to the hole. She will be tempted to use an iPhone when she runs out of phone minutes. She will be tempted to use an iPhone when she wants to convey something that she doesn't want to convey on the prison phone because those calls are recorded. She may want to use the iPhone to send an email because she doesn't want to send it through the Core Links email system because, of course, those emails can be read. So there will be massive temptation around her at all times, and the consequences are significant and severe if she gets caught. Where it can be like a country club, I suppose, is there can be some freedom outdoors with the exercise, and there will be tennis, and there is a track, and racquetball, and volleyball. So there will be ample time for her to exercise and to get fitter and stronger. The library at Dublin is excellent. Again, our team wrote a very lengthy article about life at Dublin Federal Prison Camp, a breakdown of what it looks like, the housing unit, how many women are there, the jobs, the educational programs. I'll put a link to that blog in this YouTube and podcast description so you can learn more specifics about what her life would be like at Dublin Federal Prison Camp. As I wrap up this video talking about Elizabeth Holmes, I want to stress what it takes for someone to be successful in prison. Our team has written books and blogs and filmed a lot of videos about it, but in some, it requires the prisoner, Miss Holmes, if she's in prison, to focus on what she can and cannot control, something the Stoics have taught for thousands of years. She can't control if she's scrubbing toilets and showers initially. She can't control her bunkie, if that bunkie's up all night and making noises and cooking and slamming the locker and listening to music and talking to her friends. She may not be able to control that. She may not be able to control when she can call home, how much time she has access to email, when she can visit, how early she can get out of there or get released, what programs qualify for the First Step Act because it's delayed because the BOP delays things, and also with COVID. She can't control that. What can she control? Her attitude. what she chooses to do. I'd encourage her to wake very early every single morning. A beauty to prison is waking early while the dorm sleeps. To have a couple of hours alone while the dorm is sleeping to think and reflect and plan out the day is incredibly valuable. I start a little after 4 a.m. every day. I certainly didn't, well, I got up a little after 5 today, and I'm tired now. But I started around 4 a.m. every single day in prison, and I'd encourage her to do the same thing. And it's just, you feel free while the dorm is sleeping, to be able to reflect, go to that quiet room, to write, to read. It's a wonderful opportunity. So I'd encourage her to start early, and for her to avoid the trouble and the drama. She can control if she goes to the TV room in the evenings. Of course, some people in prison control the TV room like it's their fiefdom. They watch TV all day. If you change the channel, bad things can happen. And I'd encourage her to let friendships form organically. That's what she can control. She can control how these friendships form, her attitude, how she responds to her family, because I can assure you, this experience will be harder on those that love and support her. I understand she is pregnant. If she's in prison, she'll be there without not a lot of access to her baby, and that's difficult. And in retrospect, that's something she may have given greater thought to before breaking the law, or given greater thought to going to trial and potentially losing, because had she taken a plea deal, it would have been a much shorter period of time. So again, thank you so much for watching this video or listening to this podcast. Our team is incredibly grateful. We look forward to providing more videos and value around this Elizabeth Holmes trial. And of course, if you have questions, post them. Our team will respond to the best of our ability. Is it a country club? Not sure. Not sold. I don't think so. It's still prison. It's still tough. And it's something she will have to prepare properly for. Thank you again for watching. Goodbye.